Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a minute to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. Do you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals? Check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you. And on the show today, Marco Brown. So you were working with Cardone's team. You guys developed a vision or a roadmap for this to blueprint it out before you pulled the trigger, yeah?
Yes.
And what did that look like? What did that roadmap look like? As granular as you want to get.
So it was really like 10 years in the future. What do you want this to be? And for me, that was 75 million in revenue. And then about 10, that would require, and then you just back the math out from there. So it probably required 10 to 12 different jurisdictions or states to be able to do that. And this number of attorneys, which is about 300, and this number of clients and so on and so forth. So really it's like, okay, this is the thing. And then you just back out the math from there. And then you can timeline it knowing that your expansion is always going to be slower in the beginning than it will later on because you learn things and you learn how to accelerate it over time.
And you did an extensive amount of research. I remember you touched on it very briefly when we last spoke because we were kind of just getting to know each other. Talk about the market research that you did as you were fleshing out this plan.
It's interesting. So the market research, there are kind of two ways to do this. If you're just a straight mercenary, then like a Joe Morgan, as far as I can tell, which, all props to Joe Morgan, but the dude's a mercenary.
John Morgan? Oh, you mean John Morgan?
John Morgan. Sorry.
John Morgan. Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay.
So if you're just a straight mercenary, you're just going to go find kind of whatever market is the best, no matter what, right? Like which is going to have the highest returns and the barrier for entry and so forth. And it just depends on who you are. But I didn't really do that because, for instance, I could make probably an exceeding amount of money in California, but I wish to have absolutely nothing to do with that dumpster fire of a state. I just don't. I don't like their politics. Like I named my second kid after Anton and Scalia. It's not my joint, right? So I don't like their politics. I don't like their monetary policy. I don't like any of that kind of tax policy. I don't like any of that kind of stuff. So I actually said, all right, these states, California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, these sorts of states.
I was waiting for New York. I was waiting for you to throw New York in there.
Golly, you got such freaking weird divorce laws in New York, man.
The whole state, the politics are kind of all over the map,
Yeah.
So.
And right now, you're about to literally vote a kind of avowed communist in as mayor of New York.
It's got a lot of eyeballs on the news lately. Let's put it that way, anyway, for sure.
I just didn't want to have anything to do with that. So I identified states that I thought I wanted to get into. And then also geographically, like states kind of around me that I could get to fairly easily so I could get home and be with my wife and kids, right? So when you think about expansion, you really need to think like, okay, again, I could just be a mercenary, or I can do what I think is sustainable for me and my team. And that's what I chose. And I think that's the smarter way to go about it.
Right. It's also, there's an investment cost, I should say, but it's not just money, it's time, right? So despite the fact that you've built it as a business, to me, they still need to see the owner whose name is on the door. They need to see you. It might be once a month until you get your team up and running, you know what I mean? Or twice a month, whatever. So yeah, basically it sounds like you were very intentional with proximity to the office by flight, that type of stuff, right?
Yes.
Did you do socioeconomic demographics like high income area versus lower income areas?
Yeah, absolutely did. So for example, in Arizona, that was one of the things that we looked at quite a bit. So we put our office kind of in the center. And actually, I think this is a mistake I made now looking back on it. But we put the office kind of in the center of Mesa, Gilbert, and Chandler, which are kind of, they're cities, but they're suburbs of Phoenix, essentially, right? In that huge valley they have. So we had looked at that and we thought, all right, where can we put it such that we can amalgamate people from all of those different geographic areas and they'll come to the office and so on and so forth. So we did that. And I think that's a good plan. And you have to look at the socioeconomics of the whole thing because you don't want it to be in some really low rent garbage, city for lack of a better term. Like you want to make some money, right?
Right.
And you want to serve your client, and we charge a lot of cash. So we had to find that. So you got to go find those zip codes essentially, and then get into those zip codes. Now, one of the mistakes that I've made is I look at the location now and I put it too centrally located. So it's in Mesa, and really I should have put it in either Chandler or Gilbert, because I didn't understand that people would drive farther distances in Phoenix, in that Phoenix Valley, than I thought, than they do here in Utah, right? Because here in Utah, it's like 10 miles. You're not going outside 10 miles.
Right.
To get a divorce attorney. But they're so used to driving that they'll drive 30 minutes, 40 minutes for pretty much anything. And I just didn't realize that about the culture. So I put the office in the wrong spot.
That's one of the things that actually spurred me to reach out to you because, we're very similar. We're open about a lot of the same things, wins and losses, what I've done wrong, where the losses come, because I never want to paint a picture that's not 100% authentic. And in addition to the two mistakes you already talked about, were there any other mistakes or incorrect assumptions that you started to uncover as you did the process?
Yeah. So I think one of the big ones was on the marketing side, I could essentially do the same thing that I did in Utah and just replicate it and do it down in Arizona. And that's partially true and then wholly not true. So it works to a certain point, but we ended up doing what we did in Utah. We ended up getting very different sorts of leads in Arizona. And I didn't react fast enough to that and get the data that I needed to make the switch quick enough and say, okay, like these are lower quality leads, what we're doing. So we need to switch it up to target specifically higher quality leads so we can kind of get to the same place that we're in Utah. And we're doing that now, but I didn't do that for about the first, essentially 10 months. And that was a big mistake. Like that's something as we go into other states now, like we will have that data at the ready from the beginning. Right. And we're just going to adjust and like, and niche down constantly. So that's one of the mistakes. And that I think is a really super important one, because if you don't do that, you're going to throw a lot of cash at advertising, thinking it's going to work the same way. And it's just not going to work the same way. The other is really underestimating how difficult it's going to be to figure out the differences between how you run cases. Okay. So, in Utah, we have a culture of mediation when we are in divorce cases. So 99% of our cases get done through mediation, and maybe 15% of our cases ever see the inside of a courtroom because we just don't need to. Like we take care of our stuff here. In Arizona, vastly different. And I realized when I had to can my lead attorney down there, which I did about a month and a half ago, that I didn't realize how the cases actually ran. I had kind of a general idea of how they did things, but then I had to go in, and we had a newer attorney in there now, and we had to build out how we were going to run cases, right? And we just knew that in Utah, that flow and the rhythm and everything else, and we just hadn't taken that time to figure that out in Arizona.
So basically the workflow system, right? The operational system. So when you're building the team, right? You and I have had long conversations offline about the approach to recruiting in general at this point. Did you do the recruiting for Arizona on your own in the beginning?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you set it up as basically the cases will be in, we're going to set it up with what we know works for us in Utah? Did you set it up like a pod structure with an attorney, paralegal, legal assistant? What did you set up?
So this is where I made the biggest mistake. One, trying to do all the recruiting on my own without getting an agency to help me out, because I know the attorney, I know the players in Utah, right? But I don't know the players in Arizona. So I'm going in cold, trying to find somebody, hire someone as an employee / partner in this thing, but I don't know anybody there. And it's like, I put stuff on Indeed and asked people and so on, but it didn't really function. So I didn't do that. When we do it again, we will engage a recruiting agency months in advance and really go through the homework of trying to get everybody and find that perfect attorney and that perfect partner down there. So that was the biggest mistake I made, and one that I will absolutely not replicate at all. And the other mistake after that was I just hired the attorney, and then the paralegal, we used a paralegal from Utah to kind of, duct tape the thing until we got a paralegal in the state that could work on the cases. And that was a big mistake. If you're going to make the investment in an attorney and a paralegal.
Right.
And really just do that, especially that paralegal. That paralegal is the person who makes the thing go. Yeah. And I really should have hired the paralegal even before the attorney, to be honest with you, because they're the ones that make the machinery just function.
Right. One piece of advice you give anybody else, looking to go into that second or third state at this point?
Have money. You have to have excess in order to do this. The only reason I've been able to make this function is because I had enough excess profit to get this thing off the ground and pay back taxes and do all this kind of stuff, right? But if you're running low margins, you're screwed. That's not going to happen for you. That is just a recipe for you going bankrupt. So if you don't have good margins right now, don't even think about it.
Okay. I am here with Elise Bowie and Mackenzie Corbin from Elise's law firm. Now let's talk about the client-centered approach, because that's where Mackenzie comes in, right? So Mackenzie, what's your background, title? How'd you end up at Elise's firm?
Yeah, so I've been very lucky to land my role with Elise. I've been with the firm about 4.5 years and started on the intake side. So started, answering phones, and then became lead of that team, and then took some time off, had a baby, and then came back. And it was like leadership probably had talked about this all while I was on maternity leave and had all this planned for when I got back, because they approached me and they were like, hey, we're kind of thinking we want to create this client hospitality role. Would you be interested? And I said, heck yes, throw me in. But my background has been across all different helping fields. So started in community mental health. Then I was an adult probation officer to high-level felons. Then I went and worked in the funeral industry during COVID. And that got pretty heavy, and I wanted to travel, and I found Elise, and we just hit it off really great, and I've been here ever since.
That's awesome. So you were always in the service industry, so that kind of lends itself to this. I'm going to ping pong back and forth because you guys get my brain racing now. I'm going to get out my notepad as I write questions down. But Elise, what was the impetus while Mackenzie was on maternity for you to create this role?
Well, I am literally Will Guidara's most vocal, biggest fan of Unreasonable Hospitality. I mean, I read the book, no doubt, 8 times.
Really?
You have no idea. Unreasonable hospitality was vocabulary to who I am as a person. And I didn't know it existed. I am always that person who gives gifts and who comes up with ideas. How can I support somebody when they're having a rough time? I was raised and grown in New Orleans. And New Orleans is such a city of just rich hospitality. And that's all I knew. And so, I used to get in trouble at my firm with the leaders. They'd be like, Elise, look at how many flower arrangements you send out in a month. I'm like, don't analyze my flower arrangements. So now we created this gifts from the sky. So I have a certain amount of gifts I can just give, and nobody's going to tell me anything about them. But when I read Will's book, I was like, oh my gosh, who is this person and what is this? It just spoke to me like none other. And so, I've, gone to conferences specifically where he's spoken so I could meet him, I am all in Unreasonable Hospitality. And so it just became so obvious to me. I was like, we need somebody to focus on this and somebody who brings this to every aspect of our firm. And no doubt we haven't even maximized it at all yet, all the things we can do.
Right.
It's kind of like I was actually on a call earlier this morning with a bunch of family law firm owners, and somebody was like, oh, what have you done recently that's kind of, weird or out there? And I was like, well, I made a house call to an elderly client on the Saturday after Thanksgiving to help her move. And they were like, you did what? And I was like, well, she really needed help. And she's older and she's getting divorced, older. And I just told her, I said, I'm happy to come and help you. So do you know what I mean? Just sometimes I think not forgetting why we go into this work. It's to help people.
I thought about how basic what the concept is, right? Like, how do you want to be treated as a client? Now, look, I run a personal injury firm, right? And we have a B2B silo, but I run a PI silo, which is B2C, very similar to what you guys do. And fundamentally, I had the same shift where I was like, we just need to treat people so shockingly nice, so well, so understanding and empathetic. And really, isn't that just the golden rule? Like, how do I want to be treated, right? I'm having a dispute with somebody right now over a different professional service being rendered to my firm. I just want to be treated well. I just want to be told the truth. And people have gotten so far away from that in the quest for success and building and all of these different things. That it's just going back to basics, really,
100%.
right? Like the fundamental rule is people just want to be treated nicely, you know?
When Elise started talking about unreasonable hospitality, people were kind of freaked out about it. Like they were like, this doesn't sound right. Like this is weird. And that's the whole thing, is that it is weird because you're going above and beyond what is the expectation. So Elise has also given our teams have a budget. Every quarter they have a budget that they can spend on gifts internally or externally. So they can, we have people going through hard times right now. Let's send them a gift basket or flowers or, hot chocolate or just something little that says, I'm thinking of you. So yeah, operationally, it really is looking at the firm as a whole and who we are as a firm. And I coached when I was coach of the intake team, I said to them, we continue to set ourselves apart from all law firms in Washington state because we listen, we do the active listening. We repeat back to them what we hear. But then when they hire us, we're doing all of these other things that say, we see you, we hear you, we're here for you, and here's what we're going to do to help you through this.
Active listening. Let's talk about that, because as somebody who spent way too much of my life talking, the value of listening has really taken hold and making people understand that when I'm talking to them, they're the only ones in the room.
Yep.
That moment is the only moment that matters. And when I don't know what to do, care. That's all. Like, that's a Buddhist philosophy that I learned. Like, when? Right now, it's all we have, right? And who? The person you're with.
Yeah.
The person you're with, give them your undivided attention. They will feel that. And when you don't know what to do or say, just care.
Exactly.
Just care. And so, like, you just embodied it. We see you. We hear you. We are here for you, right? And we're going to see you through this. That doesn't mean you're going to win every case.
Lord,
right.
no.
Right?
Yeah, there's no promises, but it kind of, I said a while back, I just want every client to feel like our only client.
Yes. Yes. And how do you build it operationally, which is fantastic, because
that is the key.
I keep saying, I want to scale caring.
Yes, exactly.
You have figured out the elements fundamentally where if you triple your case size and your staff size, you can still do the same MO, just adding more Mackenzies. Quick break to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is supported by Tona Law, a modern law firm built on integrity and innovation. Learn how they're changing the game at tonalaw.com. Attorney referrals accepted from across the country. You'll see what it's like when you send us a case. You'll have some happy clients. I am joined today by Monty Kane. You've experienced pretty significant growth in a short amount of time. You went from 3 lawyers to 12 lawyers, right? You said 12 in...
Yeah, 12. I think, I think Riley's been with us 4 years. Right before Riley, there was just 2 of us. So we went from 2 to 12 in, I guess, 4 years. So
that's insane growth. I mean, that's 600% growth. And again, now this shifts to the business side for a second. Are you still trying cases and lawyering?
I would say all the way up until last year. I had a big case that did settle. I still involved in some of the bigger cases. So I guess that still remains to be seen. But as we've grown, I've had to pull back from my caseload, and I stay actively involved in a lot of the larger cases, at least on a consulting side. Not so much doing all the depositions, things of that nature, but okay, let's try to chart a path on, where we need to go. So anyway, and just getting to the business side a little bit of it, not, just from my experience, for people out there that are starting to practice, I started getting involved in some growth conferences, PILMA, and some other masterminds that we got involved in. So started getting the business of law probably, I guess, right at 5 years ago. I think I was involved in it before Riley started. And, one of the things I found through that process is that, I was hiring too slowly. I was afraid I couldn't afford them.
Right.
And what it taught me is to be able to be confident. And here's what my inventory is, and here's how much your average case value is, and here's how quickly you turn them. And so then you really can start putting numbers to it on, well, how many assistants do I need to handle those? How many attorneys do I need to handle those? And I would say I've been playing catch up for the last 5 years of trying to catch up of where we were. We were so underwater on hiring, I think, at that point. And then we were handcuffed by size, and then we built a building, and then we outgrown it now and actually going into another space as well. But now I think I've gotten a lot better at understanding what's the new cases coming in, what's already in our inventory,
right.
How many people do I need to be able to process those, to give good customer service, because that's one thing that we really are high on, and to be able to turn the cases and get maximum value out of them. So we're gotten a lot better at that. So part of that hiring, the growth over 4 years, is some of it's makeup from what it should have been maybe a couple, 2 or 3 years prior to that, of already starting that process. So I think we're close to kind of at least getting even to where we should be. And we're continuing to now be more intentional about growth. I would say before I started the business of law conferences and education on my end, I didn't really have an intentional plan of growing and getting bigger and things of that nature. And so it was forced on me. So I embraced it, started going to conferences, learning about it. Now we have an intentional plan on, what's our marketing, what's our growth looking like, what do we need for building space, what do we need for attorneys and staff to be able to handle that, and try to forecast that out in the future and try to get the right people in the right seats to be able to handle clients' cases and maximize their value and take care of them well.
Excellent. Listen, that's astronomical growth, right? You 6x the firm in 4 years. You got to be doing something right on the marketing side. Like, what is your biggest marketing tip for anybody that's listening to this? Because whether you did or didn't have an organized plan at the outset, a lot of people would kill to be where you are that are listening to this. What is the marketing thing that's working for you? Because you and I are on the same page about hedge funds and the 800-pound gorillas and the advertising firms. So there's a lot to unpack there. And I always like to give actionable tips that are kind of distilled down. Like, marketing-wise, what are you doing that you were able to 6x the firm, other than focus on client experience and results, which we all know instinctively you have to do, but doing it's a different thing?
Yeah. So I would say, besides just the client experience and getting referrals from past clients and repeat clients, I think the thing is when I went to a conference, met a marketing SEO group that I liked, hit it off with their VP, and I've been with them ever since. And I do give them a lot of credit for our growth on that. So they've done a very good job. But at the same time, I meet with them, I hold them accountable, I challenge them, and I think that's essential. I don't care how good a SEO company they are. If you don't learn as much as you can, I'm not a marketing guru or specialist, and some people really know a lot more about it than I am. But it's mainly, okay, explain it to me, and let's get the reporting and hold them accountable and press them to get better all the time. And that communication has worked for us and helped us grow. I think we were really strong in the digital market here in Oklahoma. And then, as things have changed over the last few years, there's a lot of competition, and, there's, your dips and things of that nature. And so we kind of took a deep dive into it and kind of reevaluated everything. And then we've also rolled out a tagline, which Riley came up with. So I'll give him credit for it. It's in pain, call Kane. So
Nice.
So anyway, that was something, and that's why we're adding billboards. We're also considering doing some TV now as well, and a really branding play. And I think at this point, we're wanting to brand that tagline and use that to get people to where they just know our name out there. So that's where we're going now. I had never done that until just recently. And so we did a new website, and I think we're starting to see some traction from that. And, we've made sure that we have good relationships with providers, and we get them that, they send us their employees and their family members. And so we get some referrals from them as well as our past clients. So between all that, it's just continue to work. In my philosophy on marketing, digital or whatever kind it may be, if you don't take that one that you get from them and multiply that into something else, like a 2, 3, or 4-fold that you get other clients off of them, you'll go broke. And so you better, when you pay for that client, to get them in the door, take care of them, give them a great experience, get a good value for their case, and then hope that they turn into a referral machine for you. Because without that, I don't care how good the marketing is. I think without doing that, you'll go broke just spending money, just throwing at the advertising machine.
Right. And you can't outspend the big guys. Like, we can shift to the conversation because you had mentioned in the pre-show notes about the role of private equity, right? So the big guys just keep getting bigger. Now the private equity players are coming in and buying the big guys, and the big guys are getting bigger and bigger. And so case acquisition has gotten more expensive. So one of the things I like that you just said, because we use a lot of the same lingo, which is awesome because I would have never got to meet you but for the introduction from Riley, is I had the epiphany last year. It's not just PI lawyers used to say, got to get them in the door. That's the hard part. It's not just that anymore. Not only do you got to get them in the door, you got to keep them in the door. You got to keep them happy. And clients' expectations have been changed by Uber, Google, Amazon. So they want a 5-star experience through the entire process. So I had the same epiphany you did, which is we have to step up the client experience. So on the client experience side, what types of things are you doing to enhance client experience, day in and day out?
Well, before I get into that, what you said resonates with me. And I know Riley and probably everybody in my office can attest to this, that I always say we want to be the Chick-fil-A of the legal industry. So
there you go.
Pleasure, because I think, number one, they figured out a way to get people through that line quickly and put out a good product, and they're very nice and personable, and they obviously train their people well. We're in a customer service business. It just happens to be legal services, but we're still in a customer service business, and you have to know how to handle that portion as well as do the legal portion well as in addition to that. But if you're not giving them a great experience, then you're going to lose clients, and you're not going to get people referring back to you. But, we're constantly changing that. We created an intake team because, we were losing people because I had everybody or seasoned assistants taking calls and giving them to the attorneys. We changed that probably coming up close to 2 years ago. Not quite yet, but I think that was a dramatic, we saw 20, 25, 30% increase in our signed cases. And then now we've changed to, we have a litigation and a pre-litigation division, and we've got a intake / pre-litigation manager over the attorneys. And he's making sure that, we're getting the cases in, we're making sure we're getting them into treatment right away so we don't have a problem there. We're also making sure their car gets taken care of, because if you don't do that, then that's a big problem. Luckily, we have a vendor that helps us with that that's been phenomenal for us. And then, which helped that experience, we have hardly any complaints on our property damage, which used to be a major source of complaints for us, and a time suck of our staff. And so that's been phenomenal. Then we're signing out, grading the cases and assigning them out and trying to get them to the right attorney. And then we're considering creating a medical management team. So in other words, somebody's coming in and making sure that clients are getting to the treatment, and or if they've gotten MRI or something of that nature, that they're getting referred to a specialist like they should be, as long as we've got enough money, as far as policy limits, things of that nature. So we're trying to constantly refine that. And then plus we added a settlement team, which has dramatically increased our ability to get the money in and out the door quicker. And then I'm trying to work backwards, and we're not there yet. So it's always, a work in progress, but we're trying to work back from there as far as our KPIs being, the time on desk, and trying to fix each one of those areas, moving back from that. Okay, how long has it been in settlement demands, settlement negotiations? How long have they been released? And we've been working on records. We're also adding a team of a medical retrieval team. So I think our next area that we're trying to develop. So because there's medical records that a lot of them we can get in easy. And then there's, like hospitals and things of that nature that we have to get through the portal, probably like everybody else does. And you got to stay on top of them. And then it's very difficult for, a staff member to kind of just keep going back to that and remembering to keep tickling their calendar to call. And so those are some of the things that we're looking to put in place. We don't have all of that in place yet.
Right. Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Go anywhere podcasts are distributed. Follow us. Leave us a 10-star review. Share some episodes with your friends. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. Do you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals? Check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you.